It was a quiet afternoon when the old man saw a dog in need, holding a black bucket in its mouth, begging for help. What seemed like a simple act of desperation led to a bond that would change both their lives forever. But 1 year later, no? One could have predicted the unthinkable turn of events. The old man had always lived a simple life. His cottage, tucked away on the outskirts of town, was a place of solitude, peace, and reflection. Each morning, he woke to the scent of fresh earth and the rustle of leaves in the wind. The quiet paths he walked were the only company he needed. He had spent most of his life here, content with his routine and his thoughts. The world had passed him by, and that suited him just fine. The man found comfort in the small tasks that filled his days, tending to his garden, fixing old furniture, and quietly observing the changing seasons. It was a life built on peace and quiet, with no distractions. But every now and then, the loneliness would creep in. He had no family, no friends nearby, just his thoughts and the whisper of the wind through the trees. Yet, he had no idea that all of that was about to change. It was a typical afternoon when the old man first saw the dog. He had just finished his walk through the woods and was heading back to his cottage when he noticed something unusual. A scruffy dog, its fur matted and dirty, walking cautiously toward him. It wasn't the dog's appearance that caught his attention, though. It was the black bucket hanging from its mouth. The dog looked up at the old man with desperate eyes, its tail barely moving, as if it had a clear purpose but couldn't quite communicate it. The old man paused, unsure of what to do. The dog stood still, dropping the bucket at his feet, and then stared up at him expectantly. Its gaze was pleading, almost human, and it took the old man a moment to realize this wasn't a typical encounter. The dog wasn't begging for food or attention. It wasn't barking or wagging its tail for play. It was as if the animal was asking for something deeper, something urgent. The old man crouched down, picking up the bucket, his curiosity piqued. He looked inside but saw nothing out of the ordinary. He tilted his head, confused, as the dog nudged the bucket with its nose, whining softly. The pleading look in its eyes only deepened. Whatever it wanted, it was clear that the dog needed his help. The dog's persistence grew stronger with each passing second. The old man, still confused but intrigued, decided to follow. Without saying a word, the dog turned and started trotting down the path, the bucket still held gently in its mouth. The old man hesitated but then took a deep breath, deciding to trust the creature's silent plea. As they walked, the dog's eyes never left him, guiding him down familiar trails and deeper into the woods. After a few minutes, they arrived at a secluded spot, hidden by thick trees and brush. The dog stopped in front of a rundown shed, its body tense as it dropped the bucket on the ground. The old man knelt down to retrieve the bucket, but before he could turn it over, he saw something that stopped him cold. A low whimper came from inside the shed. He stepped forward cautiously, peeking inside. His heart skipped a beat. There, in the dim light, he saw a sickly mother dog lying on the ground, surrounded by a group of tiny puppies. They were weak, their fur matted and dirty, but they were alive, barely. The old man's stomach twisted with concern. The dog had led him here not just out of instinct, but out of desperation. These puppies, and their mother, were in desperate need of help. The old man's heart swelled with compassion as he crouched down beside the sickly mother dog and her puppies. The once peaceful, solitary life he had known felt worlds away in that moment. With trembling hands, he gently touched the mother dog's fur, his fingers brushing against her frail body. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with fear and gratitude, as if she knew he was her last hope. The puppies whimpered softly, seeking warmth and comfort. Over the next few days, the old man devoted himself to caring for the dogs. He brought them food and water, cleaned their tiny bodies, and kept them warm by the fire. As he did, he began to feel a connection he hadn't expected. The mother dog, whom he named Daisy, began to trust him, her body slowly gaining strength. The puppies, too, began to show signs of life, growing stronger with each passing day. Max, the scruffy dog who had begged for help, stayed close, his watchful eyes never leaving Daisy and her pups. He would rest by the fire, his ears flicking at the slightest sound, always alert. The old man smiled at the loyalty Max displayed. It became clear that their bond had formed for a reason, and It was a bond that would grow stronger every day. The old man, once alone, now had a family in the most unexpected form. 1 year had passed since that fateful day when Max had led the old man to Daisy and her puppies. In that time, the old man's life had transformed in ways he could never have imagined. The quiet, solitary days he once knew were now filled with the soft sounds of puppies playing and the contented wagging of Max's tail. Daisy had fully recovered, her coat glossy and healthy, and the puppies had grown into strong, energetic dogs, loyal and loving, just like Max. The old man had come to rely on the companionship of these dogs in a way he never thought possible. They had given him a new purpose, a new sense of joy that he had missed for so many years. Every day was a reminder that life, even in its quietest corners, could hold unexpected surprises. But that afternoon, something felt different. Max, who had always been calm and protective, began pacing restlessly. His ears were alert, his eyes darting toward the trees at the edge of the woods. The old man watched him closely, a nagging sense of unease settling in his chest. "What's wrong, boy?" he asked softly, but Max only whined in response, his body tense. Before the old man could make sense of the situation, the dog started to bark furiously, their growls echoing through the yard. The air grew thick with tension. Max darted toward the woods, leading the old man with him, his every movement full of purpose. The old man followed quickly, heart pounding in his chest. What was happening? And why was Max acting so urgently? As they reached the familiar path, the old man froze. A group of men appeared from the shadows, their eyes filled with malice. They were trespassers, men who had been watching the old man's land for some time. The old man felt a chill run down his spine. They weren't just here to pass by, they had come for Daisy and her puppies. The trespassers sneered as they advanced, sizing up the old man and the dogs with malicious intent. But Max wasn't having it. Without hesitation, he lunged forward, his growl deep and fierce, a protective force of nature. Daisy, too, stood tall, her eyes flashing with the same instinct to defend her pups. The old man stepped back, his heart racing, but there was no fear in his chest, not anymore. Max stood in front of him, ready to fight for what he had fought so hard to protect. The old man's hand instinctively reached for the axe that lay beside him. With a calmness he hadn't known he possessed, he stepped forward, eyes locked with the intruders. "Leave," he said, his voice steady but full of authority. The men hesitated, clearly taken aback by the unexpected courage the old man and his dogs displayed. The tension was thick, but after a few moments of silent confrontation, the trespassers turned and retreated into the woods, vanishing as quickly as they had appeared. As the danger passed, the old man exhaled deeply, looking down at Max, Daisy, and the pups. It was then that he realized they weren't just his companions, they were his family, and they had changed his life forever. The old man smiled, knowing that this chapter was far from over. Together, they had a future, one full of unexpected surprises and an unbreakable bond.